Hi folks, this tutorial is going to be a demonstration on how to derive marks for each of the splits within a split subject. Um, and this isn't necessarily only for front office schools. This is a technique that can be used for front office schools, but for any other school that uses external reporting systems outside of SAMS, you can do this as well, particularly with regards to the point where you're entering final marks. So what we can do is we can create two what you might call ghost tasks or false tasks in SAMS in your term 4 section, and what that does is pulls in all of the tasks for the year. In this particular year, we've only got term 1, 3, and 4 for each of the subjects because of COVID. So the weighting is term 1, 3, and 4. That is that term 1, 3, and 4 is 40, 40, 20. I mean, this mirrors the social science overall, right? Term 1 and term 3 count 40 and 40, which makes up your 80, the SBA component. And term 4 counts 20, which makes up the remaining 20%. And each subject is weighted exactly the same, 50-50 within that split. So when you split them, you can mirror that exact same weighting. So you've got your weighting as term 1 40, term 3 40, and term 4 20. What happens then is that you've got this task mark column. Now note that it's weighted naught, so it doesn't affect your SAMS anywhere whatsoever. It doesn't affect your final marks. All it does is creates this two ghost tasks so that you can export this to Excel. And in this column here that is exported to Excel, you actually have your final mark. Now I've made it out of 1,000 because what that actually does is it gives you a more accurate mark in terms of a decimal. So for example, 785 out of 1,000 is 78.5. So you can just divide it by 10 on your Excel mark sheet and literally copy and paste those figures into your mark repository, which in the case of front office folks is in your data editing academics, or if you do it by class, you can enter into marks and comments. Obviously, the one thing to take note of is to make sure that the learners are in order, and copy and paste across. So how do we create these dummy or false or ghost tasks in SAMS? Well, okay, so in the case of schools that use front office, you can actually do it from within front office, and I'll demonstrate it as such. For any schools that don't use front office that would like assistance on this, feel free to contact us via our website, frontofficeschools.com, or on any of the email addresses that are tagged on this video. Now, for those of you that are doing it in front office, what you've just got to do is double check that by default your front office should be linked to your SAMS data file because of the synchronization that you have been doing. But what you might want to do is make a copy of your SAMS data file just to do a practice run on this to see if it works. So you can make a copy of your SAMS data file and then change this file name to the copy of your SAMS data file. And then click link tables. So what that'll do is that'll just link these tables. If you go to your tables and you type in SAMS into your navigation panel, you've got all the SAMS tables that we're linked to. And what you're looking for is the SAMS subjects table. So I would just type in SAMS subjects and it should bring up. And the three tables that we are most concerned with are SAMS subject criteria, SAMS subject criteria activities, and SAMS subjects themselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to do grade 7 social science. So I'm just going to do a search for social science and a filter on social sciences. And we'll get the subject number for social science. That's all you need the subjects table for, really. Now, the SAMS subject criteria is the table that runs the tasks, and the SAMS criteria activities is the table that runs the activities in SAMS. So what you want to do is find, let's filter on the subject number 684. So this is your grade 7 social sciences, and what we want to do is filter on the year 2020. I'm going to filter on 2019 as well because I've got some templates there that I can use to speed up this process. Okay, and we can just pull that down a little bit for now. Right, so first of all you want to create your two false tasks. So again, I have a template, so I'm going to copy and paste mine down. But this is what you are wanting to do. Give the task a description. I made mine end of year geography and end of year history. The weighting is 0. That prevents it from counting towards anything. The year is 2020. Okay, the current year that you're in, obviously. Remember to change the date as well. Okay. And one thing I would also do that it's not a massive deal, but it doesn't replicate another column for it in the SBA section when you click your show SBA tasks in SAMS. So just change that -1 to a 0 under the SBA task. And then what I would do is take this off criterion column, and I'll show you why that's important just now, and drag it next to your task descriptions. Okay, so what you've done now is you've actually created these dummy tasks in SAMS. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how in SAMS how they use the mechanism of pulling a task mark from a previous term into an activity mark in a current term. You see this a lot with let's say oral in the languages. But first of all, I'm just going to take you to SAMS and show you these two columns, how they've come up after we've done that. Oh, incidentally, when you close this table and it asks you to save, it's not asking you to save the data. It's just asking you to save the structure of the table. I mean, you could say yes. I say yes so that when I come in next time, my off criterion table is still over there. A field at least, I don't have to drag it across. This would be true for a school doing this in who doesn't use front office, so can't access their SAMS tables through front office and has to do it via another mechanism. As I say, if you contact us, we can assist you with this. So if you go to 12.3.12 in SAMS, you can actually see these task columns here. And as I say, they're weighted 0, so they don't affect your term 4 mark, nor do they impact the SBA, and so therefore they don't impact your marks anywhere in the system. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the task marks from the previous terms, okay, as I showed you before in the previous screenshot where we'd done it for grade 6, to come into, to push the marks through to activities to appear under each of these respective split subjects within the subject. Right, so we are back at the SAMS subject criteria, social science for grade 7. Just going to take these two numbers out here. You don't need anything under this off criteria. That was me in previous testing. Okay, and then just again, I'll scroll through these and make the columns the same. It's pretty straightforward. There's zeros where you see the zeros, blanks where you leave the blanks. Put -1 under use activities. In other words, you're telling those tasks that we've just created that they do use activities which we're about to create. Don't lock the record. That record locked is for formal tasks. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create the activities under each of these that are going to pull their marks from the previous term. So I'm just going to grab my template. Right, so what you're going to do is you're going to create 4 activities in your activities table. Well, I've copied and pasted from a template from 2019, so it's got 4 of them, but we're not going to have term 2 this year because that was a write-off. So I'm going to delete that record. So we've only got 3 for this year, and essentially we've got term 1, term 3, and the term 4 mark. Now, we had said that they weighted 40, 40, 20. I explained that in the previous segment. And what we're now going to do is we're going to tell it, we're going to associate this with a particular task. So this task, so what you do is you grab this criterion ID for geography, end of year, and and you tell it that all three of these tasks, these activities, are associated with that task. So what that's going to do is that's going to pull, you'll see when we go back to the screen, that's going to put these three activities next to or within that task, and the task mark geography, which has been told to use activities, is going to therefore derive its mark from these two using the weightings 40, 40, 20. Then you will see that each of the tasks carries a thing called an off criterion ID. So geography 1, for example, we want this to be the geography 1 mark. We want to pull it from there. So you grab this ID and you put that in there. Then we want the geography term 3 mark to be pulled from term 3's geography, so we put that in there. And then we want the final year geography mark to be pulled from there, task 7 in other words, and put into there. Okay, so we'll see those marks automatically pull through now. Right, so we've done it for geography. You can see that these tasks are being pulled through. Some of these learners are obviously have arrived during the year, so they didn't have marks. They go back and save those mark sheets for that to pull through. And then the term 4 hasn't been captured yet for this particular task, but that is the mark that'll pull through there. It's going to basically pull through from this geography column, and it's up to schools whether they are entering negative ones under this term 3 column. This is a complete aside to this tutorial really. I believe that this term 3 should really be pulling through automatically from term 3. That would make sense, in which case I would use the exact same methodology I've just done now. In other words, I would go and find the off criterion ID for term 3 geography, and I would put it into this activity, term 3 activity for geography, and it'll pull the marks through. I've done it actually for some schools. It's a pretty straightforward process. But that does mean that term 3 ends up counting quite dramatically towards the end of the year, because it counts in term 3, which is then part of the SBA, plus it counts in the 20% part. So many schools have opted just to capture negative ones down that column. Anyway, so what we'll do is we're going to do history now, so that adds the history marks, the history component marks for the year. Right, so I've added the 3, would normally be 4, but 3 this year, tasks for history. And I have got the weightings at 40, 40, 20. And the criterion ID, we want to associate it to history. So we tell it that all these activities must go under that task. And where do we want to pull these marks from? We want to pull them from term 1 history, term 3 history. You can see there's the term column, and the 4th term history. So we can see the columns have come through, and they've pulled the marks from term 1 and term 3. And obviously once you enter your term 4 marks and save, the marks will then, and you come back into the screen, the marks will pull through into this column as well, and they will have generated a task mark, as I said, out of 1,000. You can export this to Excel. You can convert the mark to a mark out of 100. So you've got your decimal. That just makes the mark as accurate as possible. Traditionally, we like to, in front office, keep our marks in the back end sitting with their decimals, and then only at the front end, the points of front end and user interfaces, round the numbers off, because that avoids decimal degradation and keeps your marks as accurate as possible through the academic year. Folks, we have actually been doing this for a number of years now. We offer it as a service, so there is a fee involved. If you want us to do it for you, we can. But I wanted to make this tutorial to, in the old principle of teach a man to fish, and so it can be done, as I say. Practice on a copy, link to a copy, and you can practice your heart's content. It's very useful. I'm going to do another demonstration on how to do it for life skills. It's not as simple as the geography, because it's well, the splits, each split is not 50-50, as well as the fact that there is actually a third tier in the form of CA, which some schools split into music, art, and drama. But this is your basic premise, and you can learn everything you need to know from here. And that is a tutorial on how to derive your split subject marks directly from SAMS. Sorry, just to add to that in front office you then are putting those final marks in for each split, and you are weighting the subject ag factors pH2 and pH3 respectively as 0.5 each. I would also add that there are schools that like to show the SBA mark on the report for the parents. It's out of 100, obviously, and then they indicate the weighting on the report so that a parent could actually calculate the final mark for a child given the final exam and the SBA. It's quite simple. Once you've exported this to Excel, it is possible to insert a column in between, say, term 4 and term 1 and 3. In traditional years, that would be term 1, 2, and 3. Or however many SBA components there would be, because it's not always just respective to the terms. There's sometimes multiple tasks within a term that pulls through. And then you calculate an SBA mark out of 100 and insert that into your system. In front office's case, let's say you put it into one of your report display columns. It could be report display 4. And you put your exam mark into the report display 6 column, and if it's an 80-20 split, you make your year weighting 0, 0, 0, 4, 0, 1. So in other words, your fourth term counts 4, and your fourth report display mark counts 4, and your sixth report display mark counts 1, which is equivalent to an 80-20 split, and then your year mark on the report will automatically work itself out. So that finally concludes this tutorial.